Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and magic puzzle boxes. As always, it's Noah, and yes, this is my face. We're now 7 movies into our look at the Hellraiser franchise. Today we're looking at Hellraiser Deader, which follows a journalist as she investigates a group called the Deaders, who are apparently able to be brought back to life. She ends up getting involved with these undead goths and our favorite spiky-faced kink lord. Like the past 2 installments, Deader was originally a spec script. This spec script was written by Neil Marshall Stevens, who also wrote the 2001 remake of 13 Ghosts, and the script was reworked into a Hellraiser story by Tim Day, who also wrote Hellseeker and Hellraiser Prophecy and Winter's Lament, which are both fan-made shorts, but they both have their own IMDb, so I'm not sure if they exist as canon. I will not be reviewing them, so here's a link to them. Tim Day wanted to write a direct sequel to Hellseeker, featuring a final conflict between Pinhead and Kirsty, but Bob Weinstein directed him to rewrite Deader into a Hellraiser sequel similar in tone to Ring and Pulse. Scott Derrickson was approached to direct, but declined, and Rick Boda was rehired from the previous film. Producers opted to film it simultaneously with another Hellraiser sequel, Hellworld, in Romania to save costs. Deader also sits very pathetically on review aggregates, with the lowest audience score on Rotten Tomatoes yet, but at least one critic gave it a tomato, I guess. Deader is the second of Rick Boda's Hellraiser outings, and for me this one is an improvement on Hellseeker. That doesn't make it a great movie by any means, but this is honestly the first one in a while that felt like it was trying to capture the feeling of the original. So with that, let's jump into Deader. We start with some crappy credits. I'd love to know how they landed on that font. They are intertwined with black and white shots of tiles, but more on those later. We open on a drug den in England with people participating in crack, heroin, and the most dangerous of all, marijuana. It's here we meet our protagonist, Amy Klein, played by Carrie Wooer, who you may recognize from Thinner, Anaconda, Eight-Legged Freaks, King of the Ants, or Sharknado, the second one. Amy pulls out the deadliest drug of the bunch and takes a few pictures of the other people in the building. A guy offers her some drugs on her way out, but she refuses and pulls out her audio recorder, saying she has what she needs. Luckily, Amy is not a cop like I worried. She is a journalist for the London Underground newspaper, where she writes about taboo things like drugs and sex and stuff. She isn't much of a team player, but still seems pretty well liked. She meets with her boss, Charles, played by Simon Kunz, from GoldenEye, The Cave, and Parent Trap. Amy and Charles go way back. They both got fired from the New York Post. Charles asks Amy if she has ever heard of a group called the Deaders, which she hasn't. Charles has received a VHS tape sent specifically for Amy from the Deaders. The tape shows the Deaders, who are all a bunch of goth, European 20-something-year-olds, as they begin to perform a ritual of some sort. Their leader and another soon-to-be Deader say a chant together about her body isn't real. As she lays down on a bed, the leader hands her a revolver. The woman eventually shoots herself in the head. Amy is obviously upset about this, but Charles tells her to keep watching. Then the leader, oh no, we'll say gives her CPR. After breathing some really intense goth air into her lungs, the girl awakes. She still has a bullet wound in her brain, but it seems as though she can't feel it. Amy and Charles aren't sure if what they saw was real, but Charles wants to know for sure. And who will Charles send to learn about these undead goths? Well, Amy Klein, top taboo journalist, of course. Because Amy is the sort who can't say no to a crazy, potentially dangerous story, she's in. Which is convenient, because Charles already bought her train tickets to Romania, where the tape was sent from. I think it was a smart decision to embrace Romania as the location of the movie. I can't stand when cheap movies try to portray places they obviously aren't in. It's just never convincing. And with a few crazy zooms, Amy is in Bucharest, Romania. Amy immediately hops out of a taxi to the return address on the tape. She is able to bribe the creepy-ass landlord guy to let her in the room for 20 whopping US dollars, which, to be fair, it is around $80 in Romanian currency. I would do most things for $80, but I'm not sure why Amy, who lives in England, would have brought US money to Romania. He gives her 5 minutes, and we get some OG Hellraiser vibes with this disgusting apartment. Although there is a comparatively clean knife. Then Amy finds one of the genuinely more disturbing images in a Hellraiser film, a dead woman tied around the neck to make her sit up on a toilet. Amy snoops around and finds some deader documents. Amy goes to leave but gets drawn back in by the body. She notices a package behind her that looks a lot like the one the VHS came in. Amy tries really hard not to touch the dead lady. As she's grabbing the package, she notices a certain shiny cube. Amy pries the shiny cube from her cold dead fingers. Dead lady does not take kindly to this though and lets out a very deadite sounding scream. But then she dies again and Amy books it, giving the creepy landlord a knee to the nards on the way out. Amy opens up the package, which has a clearly going to be important later key and another VHS tape. On the tape is Marla, the sort of dead toilet lady. She tells Amy to find a man named Joey who can be found on a certain subway car. Marla also warns Amy of the Deader's leader, Winter. He's the creepy looking guy who was breathing into dead people. She also warns that Winter needs her to open the box, but she should never open it. Apparently Winter and his followers can't, maybe because they aren't technically alive, I don't know. I would understand if Winter didn't want to open it because he knew he would get torn apart, but why not just sacrifice a minion? It is phrased as though they literally can't open the box, which would be a pretty big first in the Hellraiser mythos. Well, now Marla can rest assured that Amy won't open the... Wait, what the fuck? Did you listen to a word she said? Damn it, Amy Klein. As punishment for her poor listening skills, she gets extra bad CGI chains. Oh shit, Pinhead is here too.
Don't think for a moment you are not in danger.
We then get some black and white flashbacks of a man, but we're not quite sure what they mean yet. But it looks like it's one of those now regular Hellraiser fake-outs. Amy gets a call on the phone asking for help, assumably from the Deaders. She heads to the subway to find Joey. On her way, she sees this nice lady. Oh shit, now she's gone. The last car on the train is clearly the right one, it's even got a bouncer. I will be showing a very small portion of Amy's time on the train because there is a lot of naked people on here. And a little boy, I don't like that. But it does have its upsides. There's dancing, chess, tattoos, even mud face masks. At the back of the car she finds Joey, who looks like a knockoff James Franco from Spring Breakers. He is mostly rude and uninterested until she asks about Marla and the Deaders. Apparently Winter has some sort of control over the people he brings back and is forming a small army of half-dead punks for something bad. He once again tells her not to open the box, and you know Joey is serious when his indoor sunglasses come off. Joey tells her to change her name, leave the country, do something, but whatever she does, don't get involved with the Deaders. But she responds with a characteristic he earlier gave her, saying she has that whole fucked up self-destructive thing going on. Once Amy gets off the Nipple Express, she realizes she's being followed. And it's Winter, and I can't decide if I think he's creepy or funny. As he approaches, Amy has a few more flashbacks, which gives us a little more detail. It appears she had an abusive father, to put it mildly, but Winter can't stay for long, he has a train to catch. But it appears this was just another hallucination, as no body is found. The police think Amy is just some crazy woman. She spots Winter hopping on a train, and they hold her back as she tries to catch him. Charles meets her at the police station. I have no idea what policing is like in Romania, but Charles tells her they were just going to throw her into an asylum, never to be seen again. We get a bit more character development from Charles as he gleefully talks about how he is able to use Amy as she can't resist the temptation of a story. He receives the same amount of praise and notoriety, but none of the danger or mental harm. But this doesn't bother Amy as she already knew it to be true. I like their weird, kind of unhealthy work-based friendship, if you can call it that. Charles runs off into the sunset as Amy heads to an address Joey reluctantly gave her. She notices a man watching her and walks up to the locked gate. She pulls out her handy-dandy plot key and unlocks the chain. I would have assumed the key would open a trickier obstacle than a very climbable fence. The alley takes her to a subterranean level where she steps in some scary mud and sees a very good boy. She reaches a smaller, darker corridor and pulls out her lighter. The hallway slowly gets tighter with Amy pushed up against both sides. Claustrophobic folks may want to skip. She is greeted by CGI bugs, then by a faceless attacker who stabs her. But that was just another hallucination, I guess. as now she is in a different room with this guy. Amy follows him to the official debtor conference room. Winter has just created another follower as he pulls a knife from a man and he gasps awake. She gets a good look at the debtors and realizes all of their wounds are still actively bleeding. They don't seem to heal, but they are all super happy about that for some reason. Amy follows Winter to his office where he explains he is a descendant of the Le Marchands and that the box and its powers rightfully belong to him. I don't know how far removed he is from John Merchant, but we're not going to worry about that. Amy says she is here to help Marla and the others, but Winter says they don't want help. He tells Amy he chose her to come open the box and join the debtors. Once again, I have no idea why it would be necessary to lure a reporter all the way from England. I guess this is kind of like a shitty Wicker Man. Amy has more flashbacks of her disgusting father, and all of a sudden she is on the debtor sacrificial bed of debtorism. With Winter holding the knife, the debtors all cheer Amy on to kill herself and be brought back. It's turning into a pretty intense scene, so you know what that means. Fake out. Amy jolts awake in the bathtub, but there is still mud on her boot, so some of that may have been real, or maybe this also isn't real. Only time will maybe tell. That night, Amy awakes from a nightmare only to feel a prompt stab in the back. But she's bleeding from the front too? Damn, that's a proper stab. Amy struggles to get a hold of the knife to pull it out and gets a ton of blood all over the place in the process. People are divided on this scene, but it's one of my favorites. I think Carrie Woover does an amazing job acting terrified. And with the blood, the tiles, just the idea of being horribly mutilated and not being able to feel it, it's all a very nice callback to the first two Hellraisers. Amy eventually manages to pull the knife out. Then she gets another phone call, but it's once again just the debtors asking for help. Then Pinhead appears once again, this time to provide exposition. He confirms Winter is a descendant of the Toymaker, but instead of trying to close the portal like all the other merchants, he has created the debtors in order to rule hell, but he and his followers can't open the box, so they need Amy to. Pinhead is not able to explain how Winter has any supernatural powers, or why he can't open the box, but don't worry about either of those things, it's not going to be explained. But that's why Pinhead didn't immediately drag Amy to hell when she opened the box, but he does intend to once the debtors are dealt with. Amy cleans up a bit and duct tapes some towels to herself to absorb the bleeding, but she doesn't make it very far before bleeding through. She heads down into the subway, but apparently standing in place for more than a couple seconds leads to a giant pile of blood, so Amy knocks down a bunch of newspapers so a cop doesn't notice. Amy hops aboard the Nipple Express and shows Joey her wound. Joey says it's too late for her and to just enjoy the ride. The light shifts and all of a sudden Joey isn't so chatty. Oh, that's because he's dead. And so is everyone else on the train car, aside from this lovely lady, known as the Little Sister Cenobite. Then Amy gets surprised by Marla, so she's not dead, but remember she isn't alive either, just deader. Marla tells Amy she is the one who stabbed her to help prepare her for the feeling. She also wants Amy to face her past, I'm not exactly sure why. But then Amy wakes up restrained in the mental hospital Charles was talking about earlier. And speak of the devil, Charles is here and able to get her unrestrained. He says he'll get her out, but it isn't clear exactly when. They put Amy in the common space with the other patients. It's a bunch of generic movie crazy people. She sits down with a little girl who offers to draw her, but it ends up looking like Two-Face. The little girl does a good job being creepy, I guess, but it's just completely unrelated to everything else going on. Amy ends up finding Marla in the hospital, watching cartoons, I guess. She tells Amy only a few chosen people can open the box, and Winter needed to find just the right person to both be able to open the box and to be willing to join the debtors, and Amy is apparently the chosen one. I'm a bit confused on whether Marla is trying to help Amy or not. All of a sudden, Amy's knife wound is back, and everyone in the asylum is gone. She sees a door down a long hallway, which is reminiscent to the one from her flashbacks. We see Amy stabbed her father to death as a kid. Adult Amy falls down in unison with her abusive dead dad. And she wakes up where we left her on the debtor bed. Cool. I guess none of that happened. All of the debtors are here, this time including Marla and Joey. They continue to urge her to stab herself, and Amy takes the knife. She almost does it, but she spots the lament configuration acting all shocky. She jumps up and throws the box, which definitely isn't the same thing as opening it. And didn't Winter want her to open the box? What difference does it make if she's a deader or not? Well, regardless, the box opens up and the Cenobites arrive. Honestly, it's one of the better entrances they've gotten. We of course have Pinhead, then there is the little sister, the one we saw on the subway, and then there's Chatterer 3, Stitch, and Bound 2. None of them do much aside from Pinhead, though. Pinhead starts talking mad shit to Winter. Basically, Pinhead is mocking his feeble attempts to gain power in hell. Winter stupidly tells Pinhead he can't hurt him. Then Pinhead does what he does best, and hooks Winter all to shit Frank Cotton style. Making sure the deaders are paying attention, he rips Winter to shreds. CGI shreds, but shreds nonetheless. He then very nonchalantly blasts through the other deaders with his chains. Joey gets one last stupid quote in.
For fuck's sake.
All that's left is to bring Amy to hell, as she did open the box after all. But Amy didn't give her soul to Winter, so she ain't giving it to Pinhead either. She stabs herself in the gut and dies. And for some reason this really upsets the box, and it sends all the Cenobites back and fucking blows up the building. I guess it did something kind of similar to the house in the original, but it didn't completely level the house, and suicide was not involved. Charles watches the Romanian news, and he and his secretary ponder whether or not Amy died in the collapse. We see the puzzle box has been recovered and is completely unharmed. Well, anyway, back to business as usual. A new proto-Amy reporter comes in, ready for Charles to send her into an undoubtedly horrible situation. And that's Hellraiser Deader. I thought this one was pretty good, within the level of good that these Hellraiser straight-to-video releases offer. Amy is definitely the most likable protagonist we've had since at least Hell on Earth. I also really enjoyed Charles, and all the weird side characters did a pretty good job as well. The setting of the movie and a lot of the tone really does harken back to the original, and there are a few genuinely uncomfortable and creepy moments. There are also definitely times where it's obvious this movie was a spec script at one point, but I think most of the time the writers were able to blend those together decently. Like, the creepy little girl was obviously part of the spec script, and asylums are very generic, uninspired locations for horror movies in general. They also just always depict mental illness in a ridiculous, toxic way. That being said, even that generic portion was at least utilized as some sort of callback to the Channard Institute, or that may just be me thinking too much into it. This also may just be me, but I think the drawing looks more like Julia than Amy. I think the deaders are more interesting in concept than in execution. The people who depict them just are not really threatening at all. I also never saw any sort of reasoning as to why these people joined the group. Like, what's the appeal? When they were trying to pressure Amy to kill herself, nobody actually presented an argument as to why she should. It's just do it, join us. Winter being a descendant of Philippe is also interesting, but once again not executed well. Definitely a missed opportunity to bring back Angelique. Also, Deader suffers from my usual issue. There wasn't enough Cenobites. They were practically not present the entire movie, except that one scene on the subway. I don't think a single one aside from Pinhead received more than a minute of screen time. I also have to gripe about the box a bit. It has become so easy to open, Amy barely touched the damn thing, and how the fuck did throwing it summon the Cenobites? Maybe they were already coming and she just tossed it to get further away, but that's not clear. But then how does suicide close the box? Death of the opener has never had that function before. And what was up with all the hallucinations? I understand their function in Inferno and Hellseeker, but Amy wasn't dead when they were happening. Were they part of Winter's powers? Also, Winter's powers were just so ridiculous and vague. How do you even figure out you can reanimate dead people? Actually, let's skip that thought. And for the last time, the idea they needed Amy, out of all people, to open the box is just absurd. Frank, Kirsty, Tiffany, this guy, a robot, and Thorne all opened it. Literally anybody can do it. I do really enjoy all the callbacks though. The gross kitchen, the bloody bathroom scene, the asylum, and Amy's whole situation is similar to Kirsty's in the original. The suicide doesn't make sense, but it at least is more interesting than just using the box to banish the Cenobites. Well, I guess that's about it. Up next is Boda's third film, Hellworld, which was shot and released the same year as Deader. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. As always, I'm Noah, and this has been Hamburgers and Horror. See you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of Hamburgers and Horror. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and check out more videos. Also go follow Hamburgers and Horror on Instagram. Thanks y'all, stay safe out there.